And I'm taking all this in, and there's innocent people dying, and kids and children, and homes being displaced. And I'm looking, and then I look to my right, and there's a lady standing near the light, and I overhear her saying, when does this shit end? When does this crap end? I need to get to Starbucks. And I looked, I'm like, are you serious?
Everything that's happening in the world.
Your biggest worry is Starbucks right now.
And I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
The Lebbie Podcast, best podcast in the area, no cap.
Guys, welcome back for another episode of the Lebbie Podcast. Today's going to be a bit of a different podcast. Obviously, we have a big issue going on in the world that we're going to tackle during the podcast. And as you can see, we have a bit of a difference today. We usually call the guest on and we do a bit of an introduction for the guest. But I figured if it's, my dad, we're not going to have to do an introduction for him.
That's right.
He's back by popular demand. It's probably one of our best podcasts, actually, the one with Dad.
So it got a lot of demand.
We done a previous podcast with Dad, and I'm telling you, man, every time someone tells me, bro, I love the podcast, I'm like, oh yeah, what was your favorite episode? They was like, oh, bro, the one with your dad, honestly, tops it.
Yeah, I get that as well.
Oh, bro, we got all these TikTokers, all these people, all
it's
these
just
comedians.
it's always in front,
and it's
all
just
these
like
guests.
Everyone's like, oh, the one with your dad was just brilliant. I think it's because, obviously the wisdom that my dad brings to the podcast, being an older guy. Knowing what to say.
The Lebbie Senior.
The Lebbie Senior. We clickbaited it a bit with like Dad reveals a big secret. There's no big secret today. It's just it's actually the opposite of a secret. So obviously what's going on is not new to anyone that's watching this podcast, I imagine, unless you're living under a rock. But so we're gonna get into that. But before I get into that, I wanted to mention a few things first. Obviously, if you're familiar with my TikTok and you're following my TikTok, you know that I'm not posting my usual content on TikTok for the last 2 weeks, actually. Usually I do like comedic related content, and I usually take the piss out of Lebos, but I've sort of put a stop to that, not because I've quit, or not because I'm over, or not because I've run out of ideas or anything like that. Basically, a lot of people messaging me like, bro, why aren't you releasing like usual content and stuff like that? It's for a main reason, and one of the main reasons obviously is what's going on to our brothers and sisters in Palestine. And if you've noticed, the last 2 videos I've put out in the last 2 weeks have been very directed towards spreading awareness. And I feel like with me having the sort of platform I have with 65,000 followers on TikTok, it's obviously a blessing. Obviously, that many people following you is a blessing. And to be able to reach that many people, you got to do good with your platform, and you got to use it to say the right things, do the right thing. And I released a few videos to basically spread awareness. We went to the protest, obviously, on Saturday, and so that's why I've sort of cut down on my usual content. It just doesn't feel right. It just feels like not the same. Like I try to see even in general, like I'm seeing the humor in certain things. What's going on is always in the back of my mind. Like I'm always thinking, like there's brothers and sisters in Palestine out there, and like dying every single day, and the conditions that they're living in, and obviously the occupation that's going on, it just doesn't feel right to sort of release funny content. Not saying that I've quit and I'm not going to release any more content anymore, but for the last 2 weeks, it just didn't feel right. And I feel like I've sort of taken that step back, and it doesn't mean I'm not going to release any more content. Obviously I am, but when the time is right. So I thought, let's just do this podcast first, see how that goes, address all the issues, try and talk through it with my dad, who's obviously much more knowledgeable than us. Like we're new. You get a mix of opinion. I'm 24, my brother's 21, and we haven't been alive for long. But how's it going, Dad?
Good.
I
missed the podcast actually.
You missed it, huh? Yeah. Does it feel weird now? Like
it
we
does.
Changed the setup a bit?
It does. It looks a lot better and more professional, I could say.
Yeah. When you were on last time, I don't think we had the lights, did we?
No, I don't think we did.
We didn't have the lights.
No.
Plus, our table was a bit different. Our table was straight.
That's correct.
And it's different now. It feels like I'm closer to the guests. And usually, I tell the guests if they act up, I'll punch them in the face. But today it's going to be the opposite. If I act
far
up,
from that.
I'm going to get fucked up. So don't.
It doesn't matter. Yeah. As much as what I reprimand you and whatever I do to you, it's never going to be as bad as this.
Yeah, of course.
Palestine's bleeding, guys. Palestine's actually bleeding.
Yep,
and we need to stop the wound. We need to cover the wound for Palestine. Everyone in their own ways can do something and can actually contribute to stop the violence and stop the Zionist aggression against the Palestinian people in Palestine. And we'll get into, obviously...
we'll obviously get
talk
into
about, a bit about history, some figures that were involved in formation of what they call Israel, the Zionist state, the apartheid Zionist state. We'll get further in depth into it today, and that's the reason why. Obviously, the boys have got me onto the podcast today with them, and we'll share what I know and what I've learnt through history and through throughout my life, and seeing the people of this country suffer all my life. It just gets worse. It never gets better.
I think we wanted to do this podcast initially. We said we're going to do a part 2. We said we're going to do a conspiracy theory podcast. But obviously there's no conspiracy here. It's black and white. Like there's no conspiracy with what's the genocide that's going on, with the occupation that's going on.
Oh, there is conspiracy theory from the Israeli side of things. The way they portray their right to do what they do to the Palestinians. So, they have ways of justifying their bloodshed and ethnic cleansing. Like the other day I got into a debate online with a Zionist, and he's saying, well, if we're ethnic cleansing against the Palestinians, if we're committing ethnic cleansing, why is there still 3 million Palestinians in Palestine or in Israel, he said. So I just replied to him, they're not in Israel, they're in Gaza. They're in Palestine, but they're in Gaza, a small town, the most populated town on earth. Google
most
it, guys.
densely
If you don't know
populated,
anything, you guys don't know anything about Gaza until you actually research what's going on in Gaza. Gazans at this moment that we're sitting now are actually huddling up in a whole, like a family in a household would huddle up in one room overnight. So if a bomb would drop on a building or on their house, on their roof, they would all die at the same time. So not one of them would live with the burden of surviving the bomb, and the rest would die, or one of them would die. That's how bad it is. That's how. Have a look. Watch the media. Like, obviously, media can twist things around, and they can, they say it's 80% crap or bullshit, but there is news outlets out there online that actually tell the truth and try to tell the truth, as much as they can.
Yeah, of course.
From what they can show you, images and footage and that. I mean, when they justify their killings and their brutality against these poor people, they say, oh, well, there's a group of armed, whatever they call them, terrorists or whatever, in a media building, in a hospital, in a school. You know what? Have we ever seen evidence of that? Has anyone asked, show me the evidence. If there was a group of terrorists in this building that you've just bombed, Israel, if you've just bombed in Gaza or anywhere in Palestine, you're saying that these terrorist groups are hiding in these areas behind civilian lines or using the civilians as a shield. Show us evidence. Show us those terrorists that you're claiming are terrorists hiding behind the civilians. Show us their bodies. Show us their bodies that you've bombed and killed. Show us their IDs. Show us where are they? How can you justify a school, a financial institution, a ministerial building, a media building, anywhere? They always say, because a certain group is there, a terrorist group is there, we're targeting them. All I see is women and children dying, and old men and little children, and I don't see terrorists dying. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Show us evidence.
I have an issue when they say that, the terrorists are using, innocent people as human shields. It's not that. It's just that it's that densely populated. You have 2 million people living in 365 kilometers squared or whatever it is.
That's the most
there is no
place.
There is no place that they can they're just that densely populated.
Yeah.
That's why.
Yeah,
it's not that they're hiding behind human shield. It's just
365
it's that densely populated.
kilometers. 365 square kilometers. That's, guys, That's the size of Bankstown and probably the suburbs surrounding it. That's Gaza
2 million
for you.
people living there.
2 million people living in that. Imagine 2 million people living
what's the population
in
of Sydney?
Guildford or
What's the
Parramatta.
population of Sydney?
It's
It's probably
million.
much bigger than that.
Sydney's 6 million, I think,
Not
or
that much.
4.5 million.
5 million.
5 million.
So Sydney,
5 million.
how big is Sydney? And it's only double the population of Gaza.
Yeah, and
you
what's
think
the
about it.
size of Sydney?
I'll show you. Let's see the size.
And what's the size of Sydney? Sydney is like the size of Sydney is probably much bigger than Gaza. How much?
12,000 kilometers.
And how big is Gaza?
360 kilometers.
360
Square kilometers. 360 square
12,000 squared kilometers compared to
Yeah.
360 kilometers squared, and then the population is only double.
So you can imagine.
how dense.
Yeah.
And then you say they're hiding with civilians. They're not. It's just that's where they live. There's no hiding.
There's no hiding.
They're not using them as shields. It's just them living. Them
There's
living
no
there.
targeted
that's
attacks. There's
that's
no
just
targeted
one.
attacks.
That's just one justification
Yeah.
that they keep justifying. They try to justify, their brutality and murdering in Palestine. But I mean, there's many other ways that they keep trying to justify. But that's their main one. That's the main one that they keep saying and using all the time, constantly. I mean, at the end of the day, a nation that's been conquered and what's the word?
Divided or whatever.
Taken over and its own civilians have been thrown out of their homes and they lose everything. They got no electricity, no power, no energy. They got nothing going for them. Even food supplies are very short. The quality of food that arrives there is not good. It's unhealthy. The medicine is out of date that they get. There are many, many things that the media don't talk about and don't mention. It's not just, these people they're asking for their land and they want their country back, and they want the bare necessities. They want like the most bare necessity a human could get, which is electricity, food, and water, and a roof above his head. The bare necessities. They don't even have that, and that's where it starts.
Yeah, that's why it's very important to get educated. And one of the things I wanted to touch on first, obviously, is what's happening in social media. So I feel like there's a lot of filtering going on in social media as well, in terms
Censoring
of
and
what people
filtering,
are allowed
yeah.
to put, what they're not allowed to put. So we've seen it on a couple of occasions where people have posted something about Palestine, no hate speech, nothing, just raising awareness, just saying, look, this is what's happening in Palestine. This is how much people are dying. This is my support for Palestine, putting the flag. Their videos were taken down, not only taken down, their whole accounts were taken down. And they had to get a number of people to email TikTok and tell them, look, listen, my account was taken down unjustly, because it was unjustly, because the thing is, people are not realizing there's a certain propaganda going on with Israel in the sense that if you look at all their videos, they're using a certain kind of people. So usually what their videos are, it's like a female soldier pretty much dancing or doing whatever to bring across their agenda, and they would say it's an attractive female doing that. And that's part of their propaganda when they're trying to show the juxtaposition between that and us, Arab men literally, saying free Palestine, and they're trying to show, look at these Arab people, how angry they are, and look how, look at the way they carry themselves, but then look at our army, and they try and attract people. The way they're trying to, bring people on their side is so cunning. It's so cunning.
And this is why I like your generation. Your generation has the power of social media. Our generation never had that. Your generation should use that social media to your advantage.
100%.
So you and bring out the truth and say the truth and say it how it is.
Yeah.
You guys can do that. We could not do that in our times or before my time. They could not do that. It's whatever's on TV they'll watch and see and either
And that's
believe or
usually
not
where all the
believe.
bullshit is, on TV.
And it's all about
that's where all the
whispers
bullshit is.
from one person to another, and then
Yeah.
the truth ends up fading away, and it's only crap and bullshit that you hear. So that's why you guys need to use social media as a platform to bring out the truth and awareness to everybody to know what's going on.
We've bagged out social media for a very long time. I mean, we've talked about social media on this podcast and said how it's a bad thing, but there's also so many good that comes out of social media. And one of the main thing is the rapidness of spreading awareness. So I've never seen. Have you ever seen this much awareness around the world at a certain point of time towards Palestine? It's going on. It's been going on for 70 years. Have you ever seen anything like this?
No,
I've never seen it.
And this
You've
is
never
why
seen it?
I could see
No.
the change. I could see the change in
It's
the
the first
shift
step.
in momentum.
It's the first step.
The shift in momentum towards favouring the actual truth. You know,
Woke, being woke,
there are
pretty
a
much.
lot of people out there that raise awareness, and they were not heard of. Believe it or not, one of the biggest activists for the Palestinians is an ex-Israeli. So this guy,
That doesn't surprise me.
please look up this guy's name. His name's Miko Peled, Miko Peled. Miko Peled was the son of an Israeli general. He's an author of the book, The General's Son. So he's actually authored a book. I've read the book. I've seen all his documentaries and videos, and the guy is a massive activist for the truth and for Palestinians, and tries as hard as he can to bring out the truth. And he admits, you know, I'm not going to get into his story in too depth, because I'll be here all
No,
night.
but what made him go from obviously an Israeli?
He, believe it or not, he's
flipped the switch basically.
he was the son of the founding fathers of Israel, basically. So one of the Zionist fathers of Israel. So a main character in developing the Zionist state of Israel. His father was, and his grandfather. He was born in Palestine. Miko, this guy, the son of the general. He was born in Palestine.
Before he became Israel.
Yes.
Okay.
He was born in Palestine. And he says, I'm Palestinian, I'm not Israeli. Although he's Jewish, but
What does
he
it say on his
admits-
passport?
Admits that he is Palestinian, not Israeli. Anyway, so what changed him and what actually brought him to the truth and to speak out the truth was what happened to his niece. His niece was actually killed tragically killed in a suicide bomb by an Arab. And that, you know, like if that happens to an Israeli, normally they actually go like the opposite way. They sort of go worse, and it's like, I want to kill every Arab out there because of this nutcase suicide bomber. You know, I'm going to kill every Arab because I'm going to generalize. But that was not the case with Miko, because his niece was the daughter of his sister. His sister said, I don't want any more bloodshed because I feel now like a Palestinian mother. She feels what a Palestinian mother went through when her son was killed by Israeli troops,
100%,
Israeli Zionist troops. So, and he changed. He researched. He found out the truth that it was all a myth about this land being the promised land. It was not. There are a lot of rabbis out there, good rabbis, who are against the Zionist state of Israel. There are a lot of ex-Israelis who are now classing themselves as Palestinians and accept that Palestine is the true name of this land, and these people have the right to their homes that they once owned. You know, my wife's Palestinian. Your mum's Palestinian. Her grandmother still holds. You saw the key.
Yeah.
She still holds the key to where her house
When we went
was
to
in
Lebanon, we
Palestine.
saw it. She's in
It's a
Lebanon
key
at the moment.
that's that long, that big. She's still got the key, you know, hoping one day she'll go back to her land. And she is 93 years old. My wife's father was born in Palestine, and he was 2 years old when they were kicked out of Palestine. So they left the land at a very young age, like my father-in-law, your grandfather, and his family. They all went to Lebanon and lived in Lebanon. They walked. They were kicked out and walked all the way through the borders of Lebanon, from Palestine to Lebanon, and lived there. They were chased. There was women and children. And when my wife's grandmother told me the story, she actually told me exactly what happened along the way. Stories that no one has ever heard of and no one knows about. And this lady doesn't lie. She tells it how it is. You know your grandmother, like your mum's grandmother. Great-grandmother, I should say.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's a very good lady. She's very... and she tells the story of what happened to her and her family as they were on the way to Lebanon when they were kicked out of Palestine, kicked out of their homes. They were they were basically just Either you die, you stay and die, or you leave. So you had the choice
What would
of
you
dying
do? Obviously,
or
you
leave.
would leave. Like,
So-
you can't, yeah.
There are those who were deceived by the Zionist movement at the time before 1948, where they bought land and they paid the Palestinians to get out and say, here's a bit of money, get out. There were a few, but a lot of them didn't want to leave. And they had no choice. They had to be killed. The massacres of Dar Yassin. Look up Dar Yassin. Dar Yassin. D-E-I-R Yassin. Look up that massacre. Those people never wanted to leave their land. They were massacred. Every woman, child, and man. They were all massacred. There and then in the village of Dar Yassin. The massacre of Dar Yassin. 68 villages were massacred in Palestine before 1948. 1947 and 48, 49. 68 villages were massacred. No one ever talks about them.
Oh, and by the way, the terrorist organization that they claim was not there by then.
No,
the terrorist,
there was none of that.
the so-called
This
Arab
group
terrorist
that they
organization.
mention, this group that they keep justifying that they're bombing Palestinians nowadays, this group only came out in the 90s. The ones that they claim as terrorists, they came out in the 90s. But it's been the massacres have been going on since 1940s or 30s, all the way till now. Like
Yeah, it was
almost 100
established
years,
in
almost.
1987.
We're talking
The-
80, 90 years.
So they've only been around for what, 40 years?
Yeah, since
Really?
the late 80s. You know?
Yeah.
So, but what happened before then? How was
Even
your
then-
justification
even
before
then-
then? The massacres that you committed before then?
Even then, what
Yeah.
do they
Who are
have?
you bombing?
How-
If this group that you
It's
keep
not an
claiming-
equal fight.
How
It's
can
not.
you compare their sort of artillery with the artillery of Israel?
It's
There's
not
no-
an.
there's no
It's not an
comparison.
equal fight. You want to hear that?
homemade, It's homemade like bombs. It's stuff that you can make in your backyard. You
Yeah.
can't compare. You can't say, for example, if let me give you an example. If I went up to a person that has no arms, all right, they have one leg. I go up to him. I'm a trained professional. I'm a boxer, and I'm very tough. And I go up to this person, and I just built them, and I keep building them. Would you say, oh, I feel sorry for the guy, the boxer, man. Like, I hope he has peace. It's basically what you're saying. If you say,
absolutely.
You don't-
I have to have peace for both sides, because that's literally the same comparison in comparing the artillery of obviously the IDF with obviously this group that's protecting
Yeah.
Palestine, supposedly protecting Palestine. Well, they are. But they're trying their best, but like,
It's
what-
mate, in all
else can they
seriousness,
do?
this terrorist organization that they refer to, it's the only sort of defense that they have. To
Yeah,
be
it
honest,
is.
Because,
And rocks,
because
and rocks.
Palestinians don't actually have an army.
they don't.
Forget,
They don't even have a
they're not
navy.
allowed to have an army.
What's the
They
color?
don't even have a proper police force. They call them a police force, but it's not a police force. It's basically like just anyone. Just, hey, you wear a uniform, we'll give you a gun, and that's it. There's no proper training facility. They're not allowed to have an airport.
And
they
there's
can't
no-
have planes. They can't have. They can't have a stamp, a national stamp. They
Yeah.
don't even have a national stamp.
And they're not.
Now there
yeah.
are people there trying to develop an identity for a Palestinian. By creating a stamp for a proper passports, internationally recognized. Unfortunately, the G20, the countries that they call themselves G20, 9 of those 20 believe or accept in the state of Palestine, in a country called Palestine. They accept it. 9 of them. 11 of the G20 don't. And one of the 11 of the 20 is unfortunately Australia. Why? Why Australia? Why do Australia not accept that there is a country called Palestine? At
Well,
least.
you saw it from the
At
Prime
least.
Minister.
I'm
Yeah.
not telling you go out there and fight for the Palestinians, but at least acknowledge that there is a country called Palestine out there. They exist. And they say the Arabs want to wipe out Israel. No, it's the contrary. The Arabs just want an identity in Palestine. They want an identity called Palestine. That's missing. They're not existing. It's like you're here, but you're not here. You know what I mean? You could say, I'm Moses Ismail or Mahmoud Ismail for the rest of your life. No, sorry, you don't exist.
You don't
Imagine
live here.
someone
I'm
telling you,
gonna.
You don't exist.
Yeah, it's like me going to some.
How dare you,
person's house.
Australia, say that we don't exist? Palestinians don't exist. Palestine doesn't exist. It does exist. And you know what's more shameful? Jamie Packer, one of the billionaires of Australia. Jamie Packer. Google it, guys. You need to Google this. You know what's funny? It wasn't even in the media. They only put a little article about it. No one ever spoke big about it, you know. This Jamie Packer billionaire, James Packer, the son of a billionaire, went and kissed the foot of a former president of the Zionist state Israel. He kissed his feet. He actually went down on he bowed his head and kissed a foot of a Zionist entity called Shimon Peres. This guy, Shimon Peres, was born in Belarus. He wasn't even born in the land of Palestine. This guy became a president of that Zionist state, Israel. He became the president later on. And then of Israel. They call Israel. But it's Palestine. And this Shimon Peres came from Belarus. He entered Palestine before 1948. He entered, and Google this. This is all facts I'm saying. I don't say anything unless it is facts. You know, Google it. Shimon Peres entered Palestine on a visa through the Palestinian government. He went into Palestine. He entered Palestine, a stamped visa from Palestine. It said, I will respect the government of Palestine. He's on his visa. It actually says it. And you'll find that visa online that was stamped on his passport. He came from Belarus as a refugee. And this guy became one of the biggest, most brutal murderers in history of Palestine. In the history of Palestine.
What a hypocrite then, if he says it on his passport.
He says, I will respect. What does it say on the visa?
If it says it on his passport that he's born in Palestine, obviously, like, it's...
Please find it. And if we can post it on the...
Yeah, we can put it up there.
Yeah, put it up. Shimon Peres visa entering Palestine. And
it says something about respecting Palestine and obviously
something like that. I
staying
will respect
loyal
the government of Palestine.
and staying loyal and, you know, something
And
that it
this
would
guy,
say on a visa
this
anyway.
guy become one of the biggest murderers in Palestine. Anyway, and killed a lot of Palestinians. Every one of them, from Golda Meir, the first prime minister of so-called Israel. You know, Golda Meir, when she took over, when the Israelis took Palestine, she said one day, like the next day, basically after they invaded Palestine and actually formed their government and their Zionist government, she said she wasn't happy. She was about to cry and that, and she was really upset. And I said to her, well, you know, why are you upset? You've just got what you wanted. You know, you've got a state, you've got a country. You know, she said, you know what? I'm upset because I don't think it's going to last. You know, I don't think it's. You know, I fear because waking up tomorrow, Arabs, it was all a dream.
She thought that the Arabs would come together.
Basically.
And obviously,
you know because
defend the...
You know how a criminal feels. So she was feeling exactly how a criminal feels when he commits a crime. When you commit a crime, you know you're guilty. You're going to wake up and say, oh, shit, they're going to catch me. The authorities are going to catch me tomorrow. I'm going to get caught out or I'm going to get kicked out or whatever, you know. So basically, she was thinking as a criminal, and she was a criminal, and they're all criminals, every one of them. And you know what? There's a voice recording of her, Golda Meir, saying, I am Palestinian. So if you're Palestinian, so where does Israel fit in? You know, I want to know.
This is what it says on the visa. It says, I swear by Almighty God that I will be faithful and loyal to the government of Palestine.
Thank you. Did you post that on the thing? So people can say that.
I solemnly and sincerely affirm that I will be faithful and loyal to the government of Palestine.
Yes, he was. He was very faithful. He killed a lot of Palestinians.
Didn't leave any stone unturned.
And that was the guy that Jamie Packer kissed the foot of. You know, not only that, Jamie Packer apparently was crying. James Packer, he was crying because Netanyahu was upset with him. Netanyahu, another Zionist entity. Him and his wife apparently. You know, they promised him a lot of things and he promised them and I don't know, something went wrong. They had a fallout and he started to cry, Jamie Packer. He went down on his knees crying like a little sook baby he was.
What about the Prime Minister? How could you come out with a statement? Like I saw it on my Instagram recently, coming out with a statement like, we stand with the people of Israel and we obviously want, you know.
They're Zionist puppets.
So you stand with people killing children.
With terrorists. Basically.
And no, there's international war crimes of them killing children, medics, journalists, and members of press. If you don't understand what's going on, and which you probably shouldn't because you're able to research now. There's no excuse. There's a YouTube video by Abby Martin, who's a journalist. And basically,
she was the one on Joe Rogan.
she's an average white American that, so you can't say it's biased. Like, for example, you say, oh, Al Jazeera is biased.
Yeah, watch her
This
videos.
is an
guys.
unbiased perspective. And she said, I'm going to go and document in 2018. I'm going to go to Palestine and just video and document everything. Watch that documentary, Gaza Fights for Freedom. It's one of the most informative documentaries you'll see.
Yeah.
And you'll see war crimes committed, killing medics, journalists, children, just for marching to a
They
fence.
don't differentiate between a civilian and an armed.
And the way they
person.
kill them, like if you look at the videos, they show the way they're killing them. It's like they're playing a game. It's like they're playing Call of Duty.
Yeah, it's like she said it's like they're playing a game when they're shooting these civilians.
It's like literally the way that they're killing these innocent children, and not only children, innocent families, media people, medics, and all these people. And like it's like I've seen a first person video of them shooting these innocent children.
Yeah, and it's like
the way they get excited, the way they're like, I just killed them. Oh yeah.
there's no value for human life. There's no value.
There's no value.
It's
No,
like
no.
it's like he's got a person. You see these videos, it's like they're hunting. Oh, this is an animal. Oh, I shot an animal. It's exactly like that. That's the
murder. It's
situation.
straight up murderers. They call themselves an army. They call themselves defending their territory. But what you're doing is basically war crimes that goes against your law.
Yeah, and
It goes against your
let's
law.
let's recap actually for people that don't understand, and this is the promised land or whatever. They don't understand the situation. So up until 1948, it was Palestine.
Yeah.
And they say in history they were there. Okay, whatever. Maybe they were there. They were there.
Oh no, a lot of them, the Israeli movement people, they actually came from European countries because of the Holocaust, obviously, and all that. I mean, it's not a good thing, obviously, for what happened with the Holocaust.
Yeah, the
and that.
Holocaust
But
is
the
terrible.
people-
This-
the-
it's
the-
a terrible genocide.
The way the
Holocaust.
Palestinians took them in, the Arabs, basically they were living. in
There's a
Palestine.
photo. There's a photo. I want to pull this up.
Yeah,
So-
the way they took them in was so like, as in you're taking in someone and caring for them and giving
Yeah.
them a part of your land, obviously, and telling
That's
them,
why I
come
said
in,
about Shimon Peres.
live
He
with
went
us,
in as a
you know.
refugee.
That's right, live with us.
Yeah.
Have all the care you need, because obviously they were banished from certain countries and they experienced genocide themselves. We're talking about the Jews here. So the Jews went obviously to Palestine and were taken in with open arms. The Jews are not the problem. We
No.
don't have any problem with Jews. There's a lot of good Jews out there. There's Jews that are, I've seen videos that they're wearing the proper like Jewish outfit, and they're supporting the Palestinian cause because they know.
As I said, there's Jewish rabbis out there that actually accept that it's not right what's happening in Palestine. you know,
But
and-
then the Zionist movement was created in order to take over a land and in order to identify that this is our land and have their own state, basically.
yeah,
Because
yeah.
that's the way that they wanted to feel.
Okay, so I've pulled up this image of a ship,
Yeah.
and the ship was called Aliyah Bet,
yeah.
and this
Yeah,
was the
Aliyahs.
ship that
They
was
call them
coming.
the Aliyahs.
Yeah, this ship was coming to Palestine,
Yeah.
to move to a better place because
Yeah,
unfortunately there were a lot of murders in Germany, Hitler and
100%.
the terrible Holocaust. So, and on this ship there's a sign that says the Germans destroyed our families and homes. Don't you destroy our hopes?
Yeah.
And the Palestinians took them in with open arms.
Yeah.
Because obviously
Because-
you see someone that
The
that some
Palestinians were
genocide.
peaceful people. They never had an army. They didn't actually. The Arabs in general never had an army up until then. Up until 1948, I'm talking about. They
Yeah.
were not armed. They were peaceful people. The Arabs. Look up. The history of Arabs. Like we're not what we're portrayed in the media, and we're not. I mean, obviously you get some good and bad in every race and nationality and religion, but in general they were good people, and they're not out there conquering lands and territorial people and things like that. No, they just minded their own business, lived their own lives, they enjoyed
they
their
had
life,
good coffee. They had
Yeah.
a lot of things,
traditions, and
a lot of traditions
things
that
like
they
that.
had, but obviously
But,
all
all that has changed, obviously, since that, the establishment of Israel and the establishment itself. There are. That's where we go to conspiracy theories, Mahmoud.
Yeah.
The establishment.
100%.
Yeah.
No,
There
and-
are people out there that run the world and call the shots.
Yeah, and when we were saying before that not only Palestine doesn't have a recognized army and doesn't have things that the traditional countries have. Not only that, it's that the Israelis are backed by biggest superpower, one of the biggest superpowers.
Yeah,
and that's another thing.
That's another topic
That
in itself.
it's not
and
an
it's
equal
another
fight
bloody
whatsoever.
podcast.
America, France, Britain, Germany, just to name a few.
Yeah, and
Right.
I want to bring some numbers. So in the past 8 days, the conflict, and they're saying, it's the terrorists are doing this, so we're retaliating. We're just retaliating.
Did you just call it a conflict?
No, this is what the
but-
no
yeah,
no
but
this
no,
this
we
is
wanted
this
to
is
get
what
to
we're
that as
yeah
well.
this is what
Conflict is like
this is
obviously
what the
two people
report says.
fighting.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is what you read off.
Two parties
straight-
fighting.
The
This
New
is
York
what-
Times, brother. The New York
This is
Times.
what the media.
Obviously.
No, but
What
this
do you
no. So they won't say this is biased numbers.
No, you're getting
This
the
is-
New York Times, but at the same time, just you saying it's a conflict.
Exactly. That's what
it is a fucking,
they call it a
you know,
conflict, but it's not.
It's a
It's
proper,
not a true analysis of what's going on.
I took a-
it's
I
more
took
of
a
an
screenshot.
oppressor versus someone who's defending themselves. Basically,
What were you
That's-
going to say?
Which brings me to my point, and I pulled up and totally on the other side, if anything. So the numbers are in the past 8 days, 10 people were killed by they say the Arab terrorist rockets.
Yep.
212 people killed in Gaza. That's 20 times. That's like
It's obviously.
it's nowhere near the
can
same
see-
numbers. It's
I've
not
got-
an
I've
equal
got
fight.
numbers here. I've got
You
numbers
can't
here as
compare.
well.
You
It's not
can't
an equal
I've
fight.
got numbers here as well. So there's people saying that both sides deserve peace. Rightfully so. Both sides deserve peace. But why would you bring the situation to say that the other lives matter? They obviously do. But when you're looking at these sort of difference in the ratios, for example, civilians killed 1,600 in Gaza, 6 in Israel. Children killed 550 in Gaza, 1 in Israel. 1 child. Homes severely damaged or destroyed, 18,000 in Gaza, 1 in Israel. Look at the ratios here. Bloody 550 to 1. What kind of ratio is that? Is
if
a
that
conflict?
ratio was
that a
comparing
conflict?
two armies, then you'll say, okay, it's just because this army's more superior and it's more powerful and whatever. But it's not a fight between two armies. It's a fight between one invader against someone who's defending his home and place. That's it. And you defend with what you've got and what you can and how you can. There are various ways you can defend yourself, obviously, peacefully and non-peacefully. But, at the end of the day, you try all methods. And
How many videos have we seen of children standing in front of tanks? Tanks, and I'm telling you, tanks, if they were to explode, they can literally wipe out anything in its way. You see kids, man, 6, 7, 8 years old, standing in front of tanks throwing rocks. If I went, you had a gun. If you had a gun and I had anything, even if I had a sword or a knife, is that still a fair fight?
Nah.
And then not mentioning
Nowhere
that they
near.
have swords or knives. They have
You
nothing
can't
like
compare.
that. They have rocks.
Obviously, you
Mate,
can't
if I throw a
compare.
rock
Rocks.
at you and you shoot me, who's going to get more damage? Obviously.
I don't think they've ever successfully killed an Israeli with a rock. Anyway, it's just a symbolic.
No,
It's a
there's
symbolic
rock.
thing.
It's symbolic. It's
not-
literally it portrays what kind of power they have. Comparing a rock, which is being used
A rock
for,
to a
for-
tank.
for ages.
There's this.
It comes from the land. A rock that comes from the land.
Look, we're all
Comparing it to
humans.
fire
At the end of
powers.
the day, humans, they all have the same sort of instinct when it comes to survival. And when we want to survive, there's a difference when greed plays like a factor. So I don't just want to survive. I want everybody else's survival as well. I want their lives as well. I don't just want my life. I want to
100%.
take their lives to enjoy their belongings and what they own, and that I want to take theirs as well. I don't want to just, strive and work hard just like everybody else. Why should I? I can go and get his land and house and whatever because God told me to. How do you justify that?
Also,
How do you fight, Scott? This is a message to Scott Morrison. How do you justify your support for Israel and their aggression against these unarmed people? The majority of them are, anyway, who have nothing, not even food and shelter. How do you justify supporting Israel? With the other party, Israel claims that it's God's, promised land, so we can do whatever we want with these people. How
absolute
do you
war
justify
crimes.
that?
Absolute war
Could
crimes.
you imagine if you feel sorry for him, Mr. Morrison, that much for the Israelis I'm talking about? Then why didn't you let Israel take Australia and call it Israel? Would you accept that?
Or America,
Or
even
any
America,
Aussie in-
even America, not just Australia, even
Germany.
America.
Germany were
give them a piece of your land. Then
yeah, after
They
all.
won't. They won't
After
give
all,
them a piece of
Germany
your land.
committed And it wasn't Germany's fault, I'd say. It's Adolf Hitler, obviously, and his
Nazis.
regime, his Nazism. Obviously,
I
they
wanted to-
committed
I
the
wanted to
biggest
touch on
crime
that.
on earth, they say.
I wanted to touch on that.
And
Basically, exactly what you're saying. I put something on my Instagram yesterday, and I got a lot of feedback for it, and a lot of people saying, "Oh, you know," I put it simply. All I did was I put up just a paragraph. I said, "These days, if anyone mentions anything about Hitler or the Nazis, praising them in any way, there would be immediate repercussions. They are also labelled as anti-Semitic and a supporter of genocide, rightfully so. The acts that were committed by the Nazis and by Hitler were very atrocious and obviously almost wiped out an entire nation. And you're rightfully so to call these people anti-Semitic and a supporter of genocide if they support the Hitler and the Nazi cause. Yet the Zionists who are committing the same atrocities every single day in the Middle East for a longer period of time are supported by some of the most powerful people in the world, as we saw.
who claim
Scott
themselves
Morrison.
democratic and
There is no anti-term against them, and they are entitled to an opinion. How does that justify your support of genocide and your support of exactly what you literally? I've seen photos of people showing that the Israelis, and there was a mirror, and he's looking at the mirror, and it shows a Nazi. So it's basically you become
And
the
mirror-
evil that you basically denounced.
Yeah, it's like a mass murderer or a serial killer. When they analyze a serial killer's mind, they
always look at the childhood.
They always go back to his childhood.
Always childhood.
What happened to his childhood?
Trauma.
So could that be
basically.
a factor then?
Child
Could that be a
abuse.
factor of those Zionists in Israel?
100%. It's a
committing
major
those
factor.
crimes
It is a major factor.
against the Palestinians? Could
It's
that
a
be
major factor. It's like the oppressed becomes the oppressor.
Good point.
And you know what, man? It's like they just keep turning around. Like, you know what I mean? Like if it happens to you, you're gonna have to do it. But instead of learning from your mistake, instead of learning from what happened to you and saying, you know, now I want to live in peace. I don't want to repeat.
You wanna
the
get away
atrocities that
from
happened
this,
to me.
you
You want to
know.
get away from that. You don't go and commit the same thing that happened to you.
Absolutely,
And
because
doesn't
I'm sure
justify
that
it
reminds
whatsoever.
reminds them of their childhood. I'm
Yeah.
sure it should haunt them. You know, like surely they must feel something like, you know, when they're bombing
The
these
elders,
children.
the
and-
elders.
and-
What I'm trying to think of is the elders that are still alive. I don't know if is there anyone still alive.
of course, there's heaps of them.
Don't they look at it and say,
The Holocaust
don't they
survivors,
get
there's heaps
flashbacks?
of them.
Don't they get flashbacks and look at it and say,
Surely that'd be.
I was a little child.
scarred.
And they're looking at these 6-7-year-old Palestinian kids that they went through when they were children as Jews and being attacked and being put in these concentration camps by Hitler. Don't they look at these 6 and 7-year-old Palestinian kids and say, what are we doing as a nation, and what are these Zionist people doing to these kids? Don't they get post-traumatic stress? Don't they
There-
get like?
There's no proper.
Surely there must be some sort of remorse somewhere. You know, but
It's-
I haven't seen it, to be honest. I've
I
only
haven't
seen
seen
it
it
for.
either. I haven't
There's
seen it
only
either.
a fair few, and who have come out and I mentioned one of them. And there's others as well who actually do feel remorse and feel sad for the Palestinians, although they were Israelis at one stage and
So-
part of it.
We look at a lot of. There's a lot of people that are saying now, all right, all these people are protesting. All these people are putting stuff up on social media. A lot of people are saying it's not helping. All right, people,
Yeah.
the people that are saying it's not helping are the ones that usually are sitting on their ass doing nothing and
It's-
they're not even
it's
supporting
so-
the cause in any way. All right, so you see a lot of people that are saying, oh, bro, why are these people protesting and stuff? You saw what the Israelis were saying. They blew up the media building of Gaza. All right, sorry, West Bank or whatever.
Yeah.
Because
The
the
information is getting out there. It's
society
being
has
rapid.
seen what's
And
going
why do you
on.
think? Why do you think these soldiers are putting TikToks and all, there's a meaning behind it? You know, putting all these TikToks. Oh, we're dancing. It's ironic because you look at the situation there, and they're portraying on this TikTok. Oh, I'm dancing. This is
It's
happy
a
me.
juxtaposition.
There's
It's
nothing
trying to
going
show
on
that
here.
We're a peaceful state. Look at our beautiful women.
disgusting.
Look at
It's
our
absolutely
attractive soldiers,
disgusting.
And look at what we're doing. We're dancing and we're making TikToks. They're not dancing and making TikToks. If you see a Palestinian kid and you see all these videos of these Palestinian children dying and being killed every single day in airstrikes, that's not what these Israeli soldiers are doing. They're not making TikToks.
Well, they're
doing
not.
more
Yeah,
than
they're
that.
not throwing lollies at these kids and
They're not.
you know, giving them toys. Obviously,
They're not, and
they're
it's so
killing them.
sad.
They're killing
It's
their
so
parents.
sad.
There's a lot of orphans in Palestine, by the way. That's another subject.
They
that's gotta
don't
be
get
touched on.
proper schooling and proper healthcare as well. It's just.
You know what? I was walking back to my car today from work, and I was going to tell you this when I got home, but I thought I'd leave it for the podcast. I was walking to my car, and usually when I walk to my car, I go past this soccer park, and I finished a bit late today, so there was soccer training going on. There was kids, they wouldn't have been around 8 years old, 9 years old. There was soccer training, and I'm walking past this park to get to my car. And I saw these kids, and all of them were just happy. And they're just laughing and they're going about. And one of the mothers was saying, "Be careful, sweetheart, don't hurt yourself." And it's like 8-year-old, 9-year-old kids enjoying, and rightfully so for what you have to do as an 8-year-old and 9-year-old kid. But then I sort of, in the back of my mind, I was thinking of the same age bracket in Palestine and what they're experiencing. You don't have to experience that at that age. You don't have to be worrying about planes going past your house and whether you're going to get airstriked or not. Kids at that age should be worrying about scoring a goal on soccer on the weekend, or basically, when I was that age, I was worried about if my best friend was going to stay my best friend, or watching TV shows. But these Palestinian children, they're worrying about if they're going to survive or not, and which family member they're going to lose next, if they have enough food, if they, it just put things into perspective, and it put things into perspective in the sense that they shouldn't live that way, man. If you're that age, you shouldn't live that way. And if you're a supporter, just hearing that and still supporting the oppressors and still supporting the terrorists, I honestly don't know what else to say to you. If you're going to support genocide on that level.
It's got to move you somehow. You know what I mean? Like you got to have some sort of feeling, towards these people. And if you don't, then I don't know, man. Your heart is a rock.
You basically just got a cold heart.
You know what? I watched a documentary once on BBC, the English, and they had an interview with a prominent Palestinian person in the government, and he said to him, like, you justify, how do you say it's your land, they say it's their land, and he said the most perfect answer, and he said, if you ask the Prime Minister of Israel or president or whatever government member they call themselves, you ask them where they're born, and he'll tell you Ukraine, Belarus, Poland, Germany, Russia, anywhere, around Europe, but not Palestine. Those 100%. Ones that were first, the oldies, I'm talking about, the ones that came in 48. He said, but if you ask me not where I was born, not where my dad was born, not where my grandfather was born, but you can go to great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, he was born on this land in Palestine. He said, the land speaks Palestinian. The trees speak Palestinians. The rock speaks Palestinian. It's Palestinian land. It is Palestinian homes that were taken. They all Palestinians. It's not about the name Palestine. It's not the name is irrelevant. It's the people of that land that's relevant. It's the human beings that once habited that land that was theirs and lived happily and enjoyed their life, and Jews and Arabs together, It was Jewish and Arabs living together,
course,
but the majority were Arabs. The majority were Arabs. 80-something
living in
percent
peace.
were Arabs
Living in
before
peace.
1948.
You say we can't live in peace. Like, there is a solution to this. There is a solution to everything that's going on, and one of the main solutions would be, obviously, people would say they want peace. And how can we achieve that peace? Is if every time that they say there's going to be a ceasefire, the same shit repeats again, and the same thing happens again. So, like as you were saying before, Dad, when you were saying that she was worried, the Israeli Prime Minister, when they first took over Palestine, that the Arabs would come together one day and then the next day it'll all be a dream.
Yeah.
But it never happened, and that will never happen as long as we have this divide between the Arabs, where I don't like this person because they're that sort of Arab. I don't like this person because they're Muslim. I don't like this person because they're Christian. And I don't like this. And as long as there's this divide between the Arabs, there will never be a free Palestine, and there will never be, peace in the Middle East, because we need basically all these Arab countries to stick together and just.
But the reason why we're divided is because of this issue. It's because of this Palestinian issue. As I said before, before Israel was formed, I'm going back to the 1920s. There was no borders between Arab nations. There was no Lebanon, Syria, Palestine, Jordan, whatever. It was all one big Arab nation, basically. It was almost like that, You know, there was the Sham, there was the Iraq, and there was the Khalij or
The Gulf.
The Gulf.
Countries.
Yeah. So it was divided into 3 sectors, but within there is Palestine, Syria, Lebanon, and that. But there was no borders. You could travel from one end of the Arab nation and reach to the furthest Arab nation with no
100%.
checks, no checkpoints, no passports, nothing. It is when this division happened and separated the nations, that's when it caused problems. It was a lot of issues. There was, you know, the 19th and the 20th century ruined the world, basically. By ruining the Middle East, they've ruined the whole world. It's because as we can see today, it's affecting people all over the world, this conflict in the Middle East. And they always call it the Arab-Israeli conflict. They don't say Palestinian-Israeli conflict. They always call it Arab-Israeli conflict because we are renowned to be one nation, Arabs. We were all one at one stage. We were all
I can't
one
remember.
people.
I don't
You
remember
know,
when we were
we all
one.
speak the same language. We all speak the same language. It's like Australia, Anglo-Saxon, correct? If they were invaded by a country, who would they call upon, or who would come to help them without them calling upon?
Obviously, the US.
Britain,
obviously,
America,
Britain.
all the
Their fellow
obvious.
European or Anglo-Saxon people, like England, America, Canada.
And they're very strong.
So
people.
why?
Like-
Why isn't it justifiable that Arab nations are not allowed to help their fellow Arabs? That's a question to be popped. Like, I mean, if an Arab nation stepped in, let's say Iraq, for example, started bombing Israel, you know, because they're oppressing the Palestinians, Iraq decides to bomb Israel, or Syria. The whole world, like the nations that you mentioned earlier, the big superpowers, will come in full force against this little Arab nation because they're trying to protect their Arab neighbor or people.
Yeah.
But if America comes to defend Australia, it's justifiable. Everyone will say, yeah, that's fine. America has to defend Australia. But why can't other Arab nations defend Palestine? It's not because they don't want to. They do want to. The people of these Arab nations want to.
But it
You
starts from the top. It starts from the government. So it starts from the presidents of these countries and how they feel towards the situation. So obviously we're not going to get into any countries that we don't want to.
It's not just that. Another thing that I wanted to mention is like why does the US go, oh, whenever an Arab organization or country arms itself, it's like you're a terrorist straight away. It's not like they can arm themselves.
You're a terrorist or you're a rogue nation or state like Iran, for example, or Iraq or Syria or whatever. You know, you're a rogue state, Libya. You know, they straight away, you know, they brand you straight away. You are a terrorist nation.
Yeah,
Or
and they put all these restrictions on
are
you. You know,
not
you can't have
allowed
this.
to have weapons. You are not allowed to do this or
It
that.
just doesn't work both ways.
But
That's
when
what it
was
is.
the last? When was the last atomic bomb dropped by any Arab nation?
There was no. It was America, if anything.
Or
Yeah.
any of those nations that are called rogue nations, like Iran or Iraq, did they ever drop nuclear bombs or atomic bombs?
They say there's nuclear power there, but man, I don't know. Man, you can't trust what you see on the media and what they're saying, and I just think
You would say the only nation that did it.
Yeah, they dropped it on
They're the only ones that
Hiroshima. You know, killed.
did it. You know, like they say,
Millions
oh,
of
this
people was
countries, they're bloody no good. We got to get rid of them. We got to disarm them or whatever. But you know, they're a danger. We need peace. Like, yeah, okay, of course we need peace. You know, in Islam, it's actually forbidden to have a nuclear weapon or an atomic bomb. It's forbidden to commit mass murder anyway. But if you kill one person, it's like killing all mankind,
humanity.
all humanity. So that's what we're taught, you know. But they still don't understand that our faith always comes first before anything else, and our faith tells us not to kill people.
Of course.
And you know our religion tells us. You know, they tell us as soon as we say something, oh, you're anti-Semitic, you're this, you're that. Well, our prophet, peace be upon him, his neighbor was Jewish.
Yeah, that's
and he
right.
treated them with nothing
With
but
utmost
respect and kindness. And our religion tells us to treat others with respect. Our Jewish brothers and sisters, our Christian brothers and sisters, we treat them with respect. And
Yeah,
kindness.
As you saw on the protest, there was a lot of Jews standing side by side with the Muslims.
Yeah,
and the
that
Christians
moved me,
that were for
honestly.
the-
That
that were
moved
for
me.
the Palestinian
Yeah,
cause.
that's very.
And that in
good to
itself
see.
shows you that it's not about
It's very
Arabs
good to
versus
see.
Jews, and it's not about
it's
Muslims
not.
versus Jews or Christians versus Jews. It's just about, the Zionists, and obviously how they're taking over and trying to take over the state. And it's literally all it is. You don't have to be Muslim. You don't have to be Arab. You don't have to be Christian. You don't have to be all these different.
You just gotta be
have to
human.
human.
You just
This
gotta
is
be
about
human.
Humanity. This is about being a person with feelings, having a heart, and understanding that the situation that's going on is genocide and is complete occupation of a state, and there are war crimes being committed. That's all it is. You just have to have a brain. You just have to have some sort of feeling towards your Muslim,
Your fellow human.
your fellow human.
That's it.
You know what I mean? And it's
As-
not only Muslims being killed; it's Christians being killed.
Yeah,
And
it's
That's
it's
right.
not
It's
a
not
Jewish.
just Muslims in
Palestinians
Palestine.
as well. Jewish Palestinians. As well.
Yeah, it's
It's not-
everyone. They don't differentiate. I mean, obviously because the majority of the population is Muslim, but they don't differentiate. They've killed Christians, Muslims, Jews.
No.
Palestinians.
That's right. And
in
I've
Palestine,
I've
they've
gained a
killed
lot
all
of
types
respect.
of.
I've gained a lot of respect for a lot of influencers and a lot of celebrities that are actually standing with the cause better than some of our, Arabs, our Arab brothers and sisters, and our Muslim
Yes.
brothers and sisters, like what? I don't know. It
You
sort of
use your
confuses me.
influence.
It confuses me
You
that you have this influence
Pink
and you're
Floyd.
not using it to a proper cause. And anyone out there that has a platform, stand with humanity. That's all I'm asking of you. Just stand with humanity. And I wanted to also talk about the Black Lives Matter protest that happened over one unjust killing. It was an unjust killing of George Floyd. And it was an unjust killing committed by the police. By the police. And the world stood up. The world was on its knees. Everyone was down. And people were... Charlie D'Amelio, one of the biggest TikTok influencers, has her profile picture as Black Lives Matter. And she still has it until this day, until this very day. It's almost a year past. But then
Yeah,
where
you
are
have
these people now?
All these, you can tell.
Roger Waters.
Yeah.
Roger Waters. I gotta give him a credit. Where it's due. Like
100%.
the singer of Pink Floyd from Pink Floyd. Great man. Like
100%.
he's raising awareness.
And,
like
and,
you said.
and the thing is with
and there's others obviously.
You don't
There's
have to be
others,
Arab or Muslim. You have to be human.
That's
You
all it
just-
is.
You have to
And-
care for human rights. That's all it is.
And one of the biggest standouts was obviously Bella Hadid as well, man. I'm very, very shocked. And I didn't know she was that much of an activist.
She's
and
been attacked now
and-
by the Israelis.
She-
Yeah, and the
she was
Israeli
very
Twitter page.
online.
Let me pull this up. The Israeli Twitter.
but the thing she's doing is literally just backing up humanity and just standing for what's right. So I don't care if I'm going to lose 100 followers. I might even lose subscribers after this podcast. I might even...
We don't care.
I don't care about any of this. I just
We
care
don't
about
care.
standing up for
But
what's
we
right.
want you to
Using
share
my
this
voice.
video, guys. Share this video to everybody and let everyone watch it because this is an important
And
subject.
we
and
are
it's-
trying
it's
to
awareness.
educate. We are trying to educate. We are trying to spread awareness. We're not trying to, cause a stir up or cause a hatred towards anyone. We are just trying to raise awareness. And this is
Look at
simple-
this.
the
Look
simple
at what
reason
they're
why we do
tweeting.
this
Look at what
podcast.
their Twitter page is tweeting.
You see something like that. How
How
could you take
disgusting is that?
seriously?
You're killing children and children are dying and innocent people are dying. You're sitting there tweeting rockets.
How could you have the heart?
That's not good.
How could you have the heart to tweet something
And
like that?
let me show this play, this little thing that they try to do when Bella Hadid, stands up for her nation, and she says, she's in the protest. She said, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free," and they tweeted this and they try to play on words. They said when celebrities like Bella Hadid advocate for throwing Jews into the sea, they are advocating for the elimination of the Jewish state.
See how they're making it-
This is
see how they're
where
making
they
it about
twist
the
the
Jews?
plot. See how they twist the plot and they say we're trying to eliminate the Jews and blah blah
It's-
blah.
it's
we're not.
atrocious.
It's not
It's
about the
disgusting.
Jews. We have no issue with any Jew whatsoever.
I will
because
invite-
a true Jew is my brother in humanity. He's my equal in humanity. Sorry. He's my equal in humanity. There is no
Yeah.
difference between a Jew or a Muslim or a Christian or a Buddhist or a Hindu or whatever. In humanity, we're all the same. We all are the same equal. So when it comes to humanity, we don't want people to die and disintegrate or go in the sea. No, that's not the case.
And
Not the case.
yeah,
But we just want to, raise awareness about these people, the poor people in Palestine. That's all.
that was the main reason for this podcast. And I think if anyone has the chance to just donate or raise awareness or go to a protest. There's another protest this Saturday.
This Saturday, make sure
in
everybody's
Hyde
there
Park
at
at
1
1
p.m.
This podcast will be released tomorrow, so you guys will hear it in time. But
How peaceful was that protest?
that was very peaceful. That protest was very, very peaceful. I mean,
Not one. I mean, the only guy that got arrested was the idiot that jumped up at the top of the
that's
town
what it
hall
was.
building.
And
He went up to
wasn't
the
even
top of
hurting
the
He didn't
town
harm
hall
anyone.
building.
He was
didn't
harming
harm-
himself.
But that's it. He didn't. But there was no aggression.
That
There
was
was
a
no
very
violence.
peaceful
There was
protest.
nothing. It was one of the most peaceful demonstrations
Everyone was
I've ever
standing
been to,
in
and
line.
I've been to so many demonstrations in my part.
That protest was so peaceful. Like I was walking through and I'm just looking around and I just felt so happy just being there to support a proper cause and seeing all, different nations, like colors, religions, occupations, just so many different ages as well.
Yeah, but then you have people coming to you and saying, "Oh, why are you protesting? It's doing nothing." Mate, how close-minded can you be? What, and they say, "Oh, you're looking for praise." Mate, we're not looking for nothing. We're not looking for praise. We're not looking for that shit. We're looking to raise awareness. That's the only aim. That's the
main
aim,
thing.
and that's the minimum we can do. If that's the minimum we can do from Australia, from
Then
another
why
country,
wouldn't you raise awareness?
why not? You're sitting there at home
It
complaining.
puts pressure. What? Let me just talk about what demonstrations actually achieve. When people go out and demonstrate and protest, when you go out there and protest against an aggressor or an oppressor, regardless of who they are or where they're from, it actually puts pressure on them, the aggressor and the oppressor themselves, as well as on the international governments to actually do something. So they'll see, what? This is causing havoc. Even the stock markets, they start to crash and things like that happen. People go on strike. So it does. People abandon certain things that are made by this oppressor or aggressor, and they say, "No, I'm not going to start buying from him anymore or from that anymore. That product is made by this company or by this oppressing company." So it does
raises
do
awareness, pretty
It does.
much.
It is effective.
that's
it is very effective, and it's
Yeah.
a very peaceful way to.
That's the weapon we have as this generation. It's not this. It can be stronger than weapon. Literally, social media has a lot of power, more power than
it's
people
the most
think.
powerful thing in the world at the moment.
Yeah.
It's the most powerful thing because the rapidness of the spreading of awareness is so unbelievable. Someone could be on the other side of the world. I could put a video right now and it could reach that person in a matter of seconds. Imagine that. Imagine reaching that person in a matter of seconds. You go back 20, 30 years ago, you'd have to wait months before you can reach that person. But now reaching that person in a matter of seconds, spreading this awareness, there are people that are saying, "What is Palestine?" And rightfully so. Like if you've never been exposed to any of this and you don't know anything, then obviously you're not going to know what Palestine is. But now they're like, "What is Palestine?" Like on my videos, they're saying, "What is Palestine? What is going on?" And then you look at it and the people are commenting back and saying, "This is what's happening." And then they go do their research and they're aware of what's happening. And then Israel is looking at that and saying, "You know what? There's a lot of people finding out about our occupation and our genocide. So maybe it's time for us to sort of cut back." And then, as you can see, things are changing. Biden has all of a sudden said he wants a ceasefire. He doesn't support Israel anymore. So if you're sitting there and saying that
He's
this
just-
protest and this social media is not
Well,
working,
hopefully it'll reach. I hope Prime
You're living
Minister
on the
Scott Morrison watches this podcast because I voted
doubt
for
it,
him, to be honest. And
Yeah,
I'll be
you're
honest
sitting
about it,
I
there.
voted for him.
I really, I respect the guy, and but I just hope he can not do the same as his predecessors and just follow suit and whatever.
Yeah.
The big nations tell him. No, I mean we're a standalone nation. We're a
100%.
respectable.
You don't have to be
country.
a puppet
you know.
for like.
We can fend for ourselves, and
Have
you've
some
shown
class.
it with China, ScoMo. So let's do it with Israel as well. If they want to be oppressors, let's stand up to them.
Yeah,
know?
that's another thing I want to mention. As soon as China does something, ScoMo goes crazy. Oh, they shouldn't be doing this.
And rightfully
Or
so.
Even
rightfully
even
so.
during
we should
COVID,
not be taken lightly by China or by anyone.
Yeah.
as a nation.
during COVID, he was
Australia.
going crazy. Oh,
But
China's
let's do
doing
that
this.
with everyone, like with all these
Yeah.
oppressors out there, and let's be the ones that take that step and say, okay, enough is enough. Let these guys
100%.
survive and live.
Yeah.
You know?
And another thing I want
we
to,
got to do.
before we wrap up, I want to mention something. You know, the protest, back to the protest that we attended. There was some good things I saw, and, you know, there was a bad experience I had, you know, an interesting experience. So the good thing I saw was that I saw there was over 10,000 people easy protesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's-
And
And you know what? Not many people knew about the protest.
Yeah.
That
Imagine
last
if
week.
All people under one message protesting. Isn't that moving?
humanity.
It
That's
is.
what it is.
That's moving.
And all walks of life were there.
Yeah, I got teary-eyed seeing that, and you know, seeing people, you know, average people, white, Asian, Aboriginal,
All the different backgrounds.
yeah, and I even saw bystanders just standing and wondering, oh, what's this protest? And then as soon as they see the message
and then joining in.
and joining in,
Yeah.
not knowing anything, and then joining in,
It was amazing.
and yeah, and the interesting experience I had was as we were protesting, back into my story. So the interesting and thing that kind of rubbed me wrong is, you know, I'm taking all this in. We're protesting, you know, 10,000 plus people marching under one thing that they want, one piece of information that they want spread, which is to free Palestine. And I'm taking all this in, and, you know, there's innocent people dying and kids and children and, you know, homes being displaced. And I'm looking, and then I look to my right, and there's a lady standing near the light, and I overhear her saying, when does this shit end? When does this crap end? I need to get to Starbucks. And I looked, I'm like, are you serious?
Everything that's happening in the world.
Your biggest worry is Starbucks right now.
Everything that's happening in the world, and your biggest worry is a cup of coffee.
How privileged do you sound? Like, how privileged are you? Seriously.
That is.
You
pure
want to grab,
privilege right there.
you're worried about grabbing a coffee, and you have 10,000 people marching because they want.
Why are they marching? Because of kids dying, innocent children, innocent parents, innocent people dying, and your biggest worry is getting your pumpkin latte or whatever. The
Yeah,
fuck
I was shocked by what
Honestly,
I've never heard someone sound so privileged.
What's a pumpkin latte? Like?
Seriously, I've never heard someone sound so privileged.
Honestly, like,
And I just looked at it. I was like, your biggest worry right now is Starbucks.
you know what? I think that was the cherry on top.
Seriously,
that's what we're gonna end the podcast with.
Free Palestine.
Free
Long
Palestine,
live
guys.
Palestine.
You know, subscribe, like, you know, share it around. We want this information to go around, and honestly, you know, this is different content. I'm gonna get back to my content, my usual content, and obviously this is a bit of a break from my usual content, but I will get back to my usual content soon. But yeah, I just wanted to play my part in spreading awareness, given the platform I have, and I want any other influencer that's watching this and any other person with a similar platform, please do your part. Please spread awareness. Whether it's in the way we done it in a podcast form, or whether it's attending the protest on Saturday in Hyde Park at 1 p.m. in Sydney, or whether it's putting up TikTok. So whatever you feel comfortable with. So yeah, guys, thanks for watching, and hopefully free Palestine. And I want you all to comment free Palestine if you're still watching.
Free Palestine.
Thanks for watching.